joining us now here. I guess I should introduce him as Lombardi himself, since that is his Twitter account handle. He's a reporter for The Athletic covering the 49ers. David Lombardi here on the Rich Eisen Show. Good to meet you, David. How are you?
Hey, Rich. Nice meeting you. How are you doing? I'm doing great out here in the Bay Area. It was raining for a while, then the skies parted for the NFC Championship game. We had a warm one out here, and now the sun is still shining in San Francisco. That's for sure.
Fantastic. Are you going to also do the traffic on the fives right now as well? I'd like it. It's pretty cool.
Well, we were, as reporters covering the 49ers, there was an obsession with the weather entering the NFC Championship game because of what happened the week before and what had happened to Brock Purdy in week 6. His 2 rain games this season, he struggled for 58 minutes, maybe 55 minutes, then turned it on at the very end. But people thought that the dry track would really favor the 49ers, and maybe it did in their comeback, but they had a lot of trouble there with the Lions offense you were talking about in the first half was phenomenally balanced.
Exactly, and that's exactly why I thought, watching the Lions in the first half, that's exactly why I thought Washington and Seattle were keeping their head coaching jobs open to talk with Ben Johnson at the first available opportunity, which would have been after Championship Sunday. But that said, I'd love to get your thoughts on the national Brock Purdy conversation and how it lands in the Bay Area, David.
Well, ever since he stepped in for Jimmy Garoppolo against Miami, that was week 13 of 2022, from his probably a second drive, he was doing stuff that even the top pick in the draft, you wouldn't expect him to do in his first NFL outing. He was getting hit by Jalen Phillips. I still remember this 3rd and long against Miami in his very first appearance. And Brock Purdy delivered over the middle blind, basically, because Jalen Phillips was drilling him into the ground. And he started beating these blitzes, and he started operating as a high-level veteran from the very start. So I think that 49ers fans, everybody here in the Bay Area, has felt like they're watching a veteran quarterback for a while now. The fact that Purdy went under the radar this offseason because of the elbow injury. And I think a lot of people on the outside counted him out. They felt, okay, not going to come back till midseason. Even if he comes back, there's going to be a lot of rust to knock off. Nobody really expected him to put up the numbers that he did. And obviously, when you look at all the efficiency metrics, it was number 1 across the board this year. It didn't catch the people watching the 49ers on a day-to-day basis by surprise, but I think that it caught the nation by surprise, right? And once the 49ers reached the playoffs, there's been this whole discourse that has assumed that somehow he was going to falter. And it's funny that the games played out that way at the start. He didn't look good at the start of the game against the Packers, didn't look good at the start of the game against the Lions, but he's finished so well in both of those games. He's done, you talk to a lot of coaches, they'll tell you the hardest thing to do as a quarterback is bounce back from a rough start within the same game, especially if it's a huge game, and put it together and finish at the end. We talk about the greats being able to do that. He's been able to do that for 2 straight weeks. So I kind of sense the national discourse shifting now, giving Purdy some credit for those wins. But that shift never had to happen in the Bay Area just because he came out firing from the very, very first drive against the Dolphins last year.
Well, and he has been terrific. There's on the whole, but the reason why I think it's difficult for the national media to let go of the narrative that perhaps he's not ready or perhaps he's not the guy that can get them over the hump, even though he has gotten them back to the Super Bowl, is because of the way that Jimmy Garoppolo took the team to the Super Bowl, and rumblings already started that proved to be founded that Kyle Shanahan wasn't thoroughly enamored with Garoppolo, and they went and drafted Lance and have the benefit of finding a true talent with the last pick in the draft. And then comes this quote in an ESPN story where Brock Purdy tells Nick Wagoner of ESPN that the team told him he'd be the starter coming back from surgery unless Tom Brady wanted to come out of retirement. What's that one all about, David?
Well, remember the context. At the time, the recovery timetable for Brock Purdy had been about 6 months coming off of the UCL. So the 49ers were considering all of their contingency plans in the offseason. The story around training camp was how astounded the 49ers were and how pleasantly surprised they were that Purdy's recovery went as quickly as it did. And he was ready to go by day one of training camp. So a lot of this Brady discussion back and forth, that all needs to be viewed within the context of Brock Purdy potentially not being ready for week one. That was what the 49ers mindset was. As far as Garoppolo goes, I've always been of the camp that when he was healthy, and that was an issue for Jimmy Garoppolo, the availability just wasn't what the 49ers needed it to be. But when he was healthy, this offense, efficiency-wise, was consistently in the top 10, I would say even the top 7. But Brock Purdy has guided this offense to new heights. There's a big difference between the number 1 offense in football and the number 4 to number 7 offense in football. And you've seen it with his mobility. He had those 52 rushing yards in the second half. That's something that Jimmy Garoppolo wasn't bringing this team. And Purdy has also been really, really accurate on the deep passes. Might have gotten a little bit lucky against the Lions with that one that bounced up into the air, and then Brandon Ayuk made the catch. But everything that Kyle Shanahan has wanted to do and open up with this offense, he's actually been able to do with Brock Purdy, and that includes off-schedule possibilities.
So just to finish up this thought, David Lombardi of The Athletic here on the Rich Eisen Show, that they did, in fact, kick the tires on Tom Brady, but as hey, got to make sure that door is closed while Purdy rehabs. That's what happened.
I think that's the right way to view it. I think also after the 2019 season, after they went to the Super Bowl, there were a lot of rumblings about Brady before he signed with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. At that point, the 49ers decided to stick with Jimmy Garoppolo. So we have reports like this. We have the Aaron Rodgers report too, or that was 2021 before the 49ers drafted Trey Lance, that they had a phone call with Green Bay. I don't think the 49ers denied that either. I think that they're constantly scouring for a way to improve their team, right? And this is anything a good front office, good personnel department is going to do. But if you're looking at this Tom Brady, Brock Purdy situation, I think that we absolutely have to remember that Brock Purdy had torn the ligament in his elbow of his throwing arm, and his recovery was nothing. It was not a guarantee at the time that a lot of this discussion was happening.
David Lombardi here on the Rich Eisen Show. So then, what do you see this year as one of the more, I guess, sliding door type moments for this team, where it could have gone in a different direction, and now here they are in the Super Bowl?
Well, it's been interesting because in 2021 and 2022, also both seasons where the 49ers made the NFC Championship game, they started 3-5 and 3-4 respectively. People counted them out early, and then the 49ers went on their run. This season was the opposite. They started 5-0. I feel that people were prematurely crowning the 49ers after they beat the Cowboys 42-10 on Sunday night, but then they lost those 3 in a row, right? They were 5-3 heading into the bye. So this team faced a big moment of truth mid-season where they had to figure out the defense. Brock Purdy had to bounce back. I don't think he was terrible when they were losing games, but he definitely dropped off there over that middle 3-game losing streak. And the team really did come out firing. It was all around when they traded for Chase Young there at midseason. I'm not saying that Chase Young is the reason they turned it around, but that gives you a moment in time when this team did turn it around, and they roared all the way to the playoffs with the exception of that loss to Baltimore. The postseason around here, I think even some people around the 49ers thought, we got the number 1 seed, they said, and look at what happened last time they got the number 1 seed, 2019. They blew 2 teams out, Minnesota and Green Bay. There was some thought that maybe the 49ers would have that easier path to the Super Bowl, but this league, I think, reminds everyone that stuff rarely comes easy, and these were 2 of the most gut-wrenching games, I can tell you, from the 49ers fan perspective, is talking to a lot of people around here. There were a lot of nerves over the past 2 weeks, but the team found a way to get that gritty win, which is something that had actually eluded them over the course of the season because they were winning so many games by double digits. And the games that did get a little hairier, they actually lost during the regular season. So the fact that the 49ers were able to get those gritty wins when they absolutely had to have them, that says something, and that gives them a lot of confidence entering the Super Bowl.
Well, they're going to have to get after Mahomes, that's for sure. Yeah. I mean, this just in, right? I mean, so that's that's what's going to have to happen. I mean, clearly Mahomes was hurt in that Super Bowl where they lost to Tampa, but Tampa ran him for his life. I mean, he was truly running more sideways than I've seen anybody run, vertically from the quarterback position. So how equipped are the Niners to do that? I know, obviously they got Chase Young and Bosa, but I'm waiting for that big moment. This would be a great moment to uncork a pass rush, right, for the 49ers.
Well, yeah, let's talk about Kansas City. They've evolved as a team, and it's super impressive. The advanced stats actually indicated their defense was ranked a little bit higher than their offense this year. So that's a much more balanced team, not just between offense and defense, but with Isaiah Pacheco, they're running the ball. And the best way to diffuse opposing pass rushes is to be able to lean on that run game. We talk about Detroit. Detroit did a great job of that this year. They almost killed the 49ers there in the first half with that. And San Francisco's run defense this year has not been good. You look at the advanced metrics, they rank down in the 20s in run defense. And it's very surprising because this had consistently been a top 5 run defense on the efficiency basis for years, and that had fueled their pass rush. So I'll tell you, I think the key for them to get after Patrick Mahomes is to stop Isaiah Pacheco, because Andy Reid is going to be running, and he's going to be running a lot if the 49ers can't stop it. They say in the 49ers D-line room, they have a quote, and it's stop the run to have some fun. You absolutely have to stop the run and get opponents in 2nd and long, 3rd and long. Otherwise, you'll see a repeat of the first half of that Detroit game. And I can guarantee you that Andy Reid looked at that and said, okay, I want to do some of this. Last year, when the 49ers played Kansas City, Chiefs beat them, and that they did run very successfully. This is a different Kansas City team than the one that won the Super Bowl in Super Bowl 54 against the 49ers with Tyreek Hill. That was airing it out all the time. They're a much more balanced offense, and if you can't stop the run, you're not going to have those pass rushing opportunities at Patrick Mahomes.
But it's also a different Niners team than the one that lost to the Chiefs that day, because they had just welcomed Christian McCaffrey to the fold, and he played in that game, and then after that game, they didn't lose up until they lost Brock Purdy, and then they won the first 5 this year, and McCaffrey is a rare running back double dip of Offensive Player of the Year candidate and MVP candidate. And just before I let you go, this is something that I think needs to be hammered and not lost on anybody, is the aggressiveness of this organization, Lynch and Shanahan, and obviously Jed York greenlighting all of this stuff, to basically say, you know what? We had a Super Bowl offense with basically the same guys, and we still have one here. But we need to, even though we just spent a ton of draft capital to go trade up on a quarterback that's a big question mark in Lance, we're going to spend pretty much the rest of our draft capital to go get McCaffrey. And he is absolutely the difference maker on this offense, with all due respect to Purdy being as veteran as he has coming out of the box. This is the difference here, and this is the reason why they can go into this Super Bowl and win it if an A-plus Mahomes and Kelsey show up, because of that guy, because of 23. What's your reporting on how they went ahead and said, damn the torpedoes, let's go get McCaffrey, David?
Well, it's a reversal of their role with the Chiefs in the last Super Bowl, with the Chiefs with the number 1 offense and the 49ers were like number 6 or number 7. Yes, adding McCaffrey and obviously getting the high-level quarterback play from Purdy, the combination of both of those has supercharged this offense, and now the 49ers are that number 1 unit. So you can withstand some defensive erosion when you've got the offense that they have right now that is going full steam ahead. And I think the 49ers are all about being very willing to spend a lot of capital to go get true blue chip players. They'll repay their own. If they deem a player an A-lister, they're going to back up the Brinks truck for him. Nick Bosa, they just paid him a ton of money this offseason. You saw Deebo Samuel, they consider him an A-lister too. They'll let the B-listers walk in free agency. That's how they tried to replenish through the draft and development. But when they saw a player like Christian McCaffrey available, especially because he fits exactly what Kyle Shanahan has been trying to do offensively, and that is positionless skill positions. He likes the adaptability. He likes being able to spread you out into a nickel package with somebody who can threaten to be a receiver, and obviously Christian McCaffrey can do that. And then as soon as he gets you in the personnel package that's vulnerable to the run, he can have McCaffrey take the handoff. That Deebo Samuel is just as adaptable, right? So the 49ers now have two of those guys in Deebo Samuel and Christian McCaffrey, and it's impossible for defenses to know how the 49ers are going to attack coming out of the huddle. So Kyle Shanahan, it's kind of like putty in his hands, right? He can definitely mess with opposing defenses when he has that kind of adaptability and versatility. So I think when they had a chance to get Christian McCaffrey last season, they were willing to invest a lot, and they were, I think, lucky enough to have a little bit more draft capital to spend than the Rams did. And a lot of the impetus at the time was, let's make sure the Rams don't get Christian McCaffrey. That's what they said.
Could you imagine the difference right now? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, could have shifted the balance of power in the not only the NFC West and then entire NFL.
Unbelievable. David, thanks for the time. Let's chat again real soon. Certainly post Super Bowl when the Niners may have different plans and parade plans as well. Thanks for the time.
All right. We'll see you in Vegas. Take care, Rich.
You bet. That's David Lombardi, at Lombardi himself on the old Twitter machine right here on The Rich Eisen Show. Catch The Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.